Ever wonder what makes a tank movie worthy of a tanker's respect? Is it the roar of the engines or the tension inside that steel beast? Some films get it right, capturing the grim reality of armored combat. Others? Well, they're more about spectacle than substance. In this video, we're diving into 15 tank warfare movies that real tank crews stand by and 5 that get it terribly wrong. But what's the biggest mistake filmmakers make when it comes to tanks? Let's find out. On number 15, Fury, 2014. Fury came with a lot of hype, rightfully so. Brad Pitt, leading a Sherman tank crew in the final days of World War II, was a premise that had many hopeful. And while Fury gets some things gloriously right, it's not without its flaws. Tankers respect it for one thing: the brutal honesty of tank combat. The claustrophobic, sweaty, and exhausting environment is portrayed with stunning detail. The film doesn't sugarcoat the horrors of being inside that metal coffin, showing not just battle, but the mental toll it takes on a crew. But that's where the respect comes in the authenticity. They trained with historians, used real tanks, and filmed under harsh conditions. What got mixed reviews from veterans, however, were a few over-the-top moments that Hollywood just can't help but insert. Some say it's exaggerated, but for the most part, the tension, fear, and exhaustion, absolutely spot on. Fury isn't perfect, but it's damn close to capturing the sheer weight of armored warfare. Number 14, The Beast of War, 1988. Ever seen a film about a Soviet tank crew stranded in Afghanistan trying to survive while being hunted by Mujahideen forces? Sounds intense, right? The Beast not only delivers, but leaves a lasting impact. This movie doesn't glamorize war, far from it. It shows the moral decay within an occupying army. The crew is a reflection of that. Isolated, paranoid, and ultimately torn apart by the very war they're stuck in. What tankers love about it is the depiction of that unrelenting psychological pressure inside the tank, capturing the claustrophobia and fear of being trapped in that environment. It's not flashy, it's raw, and it's real. The fact that it's largely forgotten in mainstream cinema, that's part of the mystery. The Beast isn't for everyone, but for tankers, it's one of the most authentic portrayals of what it means to be trapped, both in the tank and in war. Number 13, Lebanon, 2009. What if you could feel every heartbeat, every gasp for air as you sit inside a tank on a battlefield? That's what Lebanon offers, and it's not for the faint of heart. Set during the Israeli invasion of Lebanon in 1982, the film takes place entirely inside the tank. There's no wide shot of the battle, no heroics, just the deafening noise of combat, the claustrophobia of being trapped inside, and the mounting tension among the crew. The film's authenticity comes from director Samuel Moaz, a former gunner himself. The level of detail is chilling, from the suffocating heat to the sense of isolation. It's not just about the mechanics of tank warfare, it's about the emotional and mental collapse that can occur in those conditions. Veterans have called it one of the truest depictions of tank combat, despite its controversial and politically charged content. For tank crews, it's a stark reminder of the human cost behind the metal. Number 12, Sahara, 1943. When we talk about survival in the desert during World War II, Sahara gets it right. The film, starring Humphrey Bogart as a weary tank commander stranded in the Libyan desert, doesn't romanticize the situation, it shows the raw fight for survival. The real magic of Sahara lies in its gritty depiction of the desert environment. The tank, named Lulu Bell, becomes a character in itself. The crew fights not only against the Axis forces, but also against the desert's unrelenting heat and the constant threat of thirst. For veterans, it's not just the tank combat that's accurate, it's the psychology of being stuck in an impossible situation. The crew's bond, their sheer will to survive, and their respect for the tank that is both their home and their coffin. This is what makes Sahara timeless. Even more impressive? The film was shot during the war, with real tanks and battle sequences that felt as gritty as the sandstorm the crew found themselves in. Number 11, White Tiger, 2012. A Soviet tank in a mythical battle? Sounds far-fetched, but White Tiger makes it work. This surreal war epic blurs the line between history and myth, following a tank crew on a mission to destroy an elusive German Tiger tank, except this one seems almost supernatural. Some tankers respect it for the psychological depths it explores, focusing not on the mechanics of combat, but on the ghosts that haunt these warriors. The story gets downright eerie as the crew pursues an indestructible German tank, and the line between reality and legend becomes increasingly unclear. While the film's symbolism may lose some viewers, for those in the know, it's a rare look at the psychological toll armored combat can have on a soldier. tank crews appreciate the atmospheric tension and the haunting portrayal of a war that transcends the battlefield. It's not just a fight against a tank, it's a battle against the ghosts of war itself. Number 10. The Battle of Neretva, 1969. Imagine watching thousands of extras, real tanks and real explosions, no CGI, no miniatures, just raw, unfiltered war on screen. That's what you get with the Battle of Neretva. This Yugoslavian war epic, funded by 13 nations, delivers an authentic depiction of the brutal partisan struggle against Axis forces during World War II. The production itself was as chaotic as the battle it portrayed, with real tank warfare and actors risking their lives in dangerous stunts. Tank crews admire the film for its dedication to realism, the sheer scale, the destruction, and the use of actual armored vehicles in the battle sequences. The battle for the Neretva River is intense, with tanks charging across real bridges that were blown up in controlled explosions. Despite some political controversy at the time of release, the film's commitment to capturing the raw reality of war resonated with veterans. Tank crews still appreciate it for showing the truth of armored combat, not through glorified heroism, but through the chaos and tragedy of war itself. Number 9. A Midnight Clear, 1992. What if the real battle isn't about firing a tank's cannon, but about waiting in the cold, desperate for the first shot? A Midnight Clear is a tank movie in the sense that it focuses on the tension and fear of tank warfare, even if the tanks are barely seen. Set during the Battle of the Bulge, it tells the story of an American intelligence unit caught in a haunting stalemate with German forces. Tanks lurk in the background, but the real battle takes place in the minds of the soldiers, dealing with fear, uncertainty, and the madness of waiting for death. What makes A Midnight Clear respected by tank crews isn't the absence of action, but the presence of truth. The film's poetic tone, its focus on soldiers staring into the fog, unsure of where the tanks are or when the next explosion will come, hits home for anyone who's experienced the quiet dread before combat. Tankers respect it for showing a side of war not often depicted: the psychological strain, the mental collapse, and the haunting fear that accompanies every battle. Number 8. Kelly's Heroes, 1970. A war movie that's also a heist comedy? It sounds bizarre, but Kelly's Heroes is beloved by tankers for more reasons than its humor. The film stars Clint Eastwood, Donald Sutherland, and Telly Savalas as a group of American soldiers who, rather than fighting for the country, are on a mission to steal Nazi gold. The tanks here are real, and the battles are staged with authenticity. What's intriguing about Kelly's Heroes is its portrayal of tank combat not as a noble, heroic pursuit, but as an absurd, sometimes ridiculous affair. Tank crews find it both hilarious and accurate, with Eastwood's crew driving captured Sherman tanks through enemy lines in chaotic missions. The tank battles, while a bit outlandish, have an element of truth. Real tankers know that war, especially behind enemy lines, often veers into the absurd. And while it's not your typical tank movie, Kelly's Heroes resonates for its honesty. In the madness of combat, sometimes, the best strategy is simply survival. For tankers, the mixture of absurdity and raw accuracy about life inside a tank is what makes this film one to respect. Number 7. Cross of Iron, 1977. If you're looking for a film that strips away all the glamorization of war, Cross of Iron delivers. Directed by Sam Peckinpah, this gritty film focuses on the German side of World War II, specifically during the Eastern Front. The film tells the story of a group of soldiers caught in a brutal battle, highlighting their struggles with officers, comrades, and survival. What makes it stand out to tankers is how it portrays the raw reality of armored combat. No clean lines, no heroic scenes, just the noise, the dirt, and the human cost of war. The tank battles in Cross of Iron are chaotic and real. Peckinpah filmed real Soviet tanks in Yugoslavia, emphasizing the constant breakdowns, the frustration of commanders, and the exhaustion that came with armored combat. The film doesn't glorify either side, it simply shows the desperation of soldiers caught in the madness of war. Tankers appreciate this film for its unfiltered view of the Eastern Front, with its portrayal of tank crews struggling not for glory, but simply for survival. Number 6. Patton, 1970. When it comes to legendary military figures, General George S. Patton stands above them all, and Patton captures that larger-than-life figure in stunning detail. George C. Scott's portrayal of the infamous general is legendary, and the film's depiction of armored combat is equally impressive. While the film focuses more on Patton's ego, his leadership, and his obsession with warfare, tank crews respect it for how it portrays the technical side of armored combat. The tanks used in the film were real Spanish tanks with some added modifications, and the sound design captured the true essence of tank warfare. The grinding mechanical noise, the power of the treads on the battlefield, it's all there. But what really stands out for tankers is the film's depiction of the mental cost of war. Patton isn't just a genius general, he's a man consumed by his need for battle, willing to sacrifice anything and anyone for victory. The film doesn't glamorize war. Instead, it shows the destructive obsession that comes with commanding tanks. For veterans, it's a powerful exploration of the human side of tank warfare, a side that often gets overshadowed by the machines themselves. Number 5. The Tanks Are Coming, 1951. Before the era of intense realism, The Tanks Are Coming paved the way for portraying life inside a tank with raw sincerity. Released shortly after World War II, the film features Steve Cochran as a tank commander learning the true value of his Sherman tank crew. The film, part propaganda and part drama, gets much respect from real tankers for its early depiction of armored combat. It was the first time many audiences saw the life inside a tank presented in such a grounded way, with a focus on the mechanical sounds, the claustrophobia, and the intimate bond between men and machines. Even though it was heavily influenced by military cooperation, the film's sincerity sets it apart. Veterans admire it because it dared to show the tank not just as a weapon of destruction, but as a home and prison rolled into one. The film's portrayal of soldiers working through the mechanical difficulties and emotional pressure of tank combat is regarded as ahead of its time. While the film's slow pacing and post-war propaganda elements might seem dated today, The Tanks Are Coming is seen by many as a foundational film that helped set the stage for more realistic portrayals of armored warfare in later years. Number 4. Stalingrad, 1993. If there's one thing Stalingrad does better than most war films, it's showing the exhausting, demoralizing nature of tank warfare. Directed by Josef Vilsmeier, the German film follows a group of soldiers on the Eastern Front, battling not just the Soviet enemy, but the brutal elements, mechanical breakdowns, and suffocating pressure inside their tanks. The film's cold, almost suffocating atmosphere resonates deeply with tank crews who know the constant, bone-rattling noise of a tank's engine and the psychological toll of being trapped in a metal coffin. Filmed in harsh conditions, Stalingrad depicts the crumbling hopes of soldiers as they fight not just for victory, but for survival. The raw, gritty tank battle sequences, filmed with actual Soviet tanks, immerse viewers in the chaos and confusion of war. Tankers respect Stalingrad for its unflinching honesty. There's no heroism here, just survival. The relentless breakdown of soldiers and machinery mirrors what tank crews endured on the Eastern Front, and the film's refusal to romanticize combat makes it a standout among war films. For veterans, it's a grim but necessary reminder of the brutal reality that accompanies every battle. Number 3. T-34, 2018. If T-34 is anything, it's unapologetically bold. This Russian action film doesn't hold back when it comes to spectacle. The story follows a young Soviet officer who steals a German Tiger tank and escapes with it to use as both a weapon and a symbol of defiance. While some might call it a bit too stylized for their taste, tankers can't help but respect the sheer amount of work that went into making the tanks feel real. The film used restored T-34 tanks and faithfully recreated the look and feel of World War II combat, complete with grinding treads, real explosions, and a terrifying sense of claustrophobia inside the tanks. Veterans admire the film's energy. It has the kind of adrenaline-pumping action that captures the fear and the frantic tension of armored combat, even if it's a little less realistic than some would like. What makes it stand out is its willingness to blend modern action sensibilities with the historical backdrop of armored warfare. T-34 might not have the brutal realism of Fury, but it strikes a balance between the spectacle and the soul of tank combat, making it a fun yet respectful addition to the genre. Number 2. Das Boot, 1981. Though Das Boot is technically about submarines, the claustrophobic tension it portrays is exactly the kind of feeling that tank crews know all too well. Directed by Wolfgang Petersen, Das Boot follows a German U-boat crew trapped under relentless Allied pursuit, and its depiction of life inside a confined metal structure under constant threat resonates deeply with tankers. There are no tanks in the film, but the isolation, the noise, and the psychological strain of being inside a confined space with no escape, that's something tankers immediately recognize. The film's realism, from its painstakingly accurate set designs to its intimate portrayal of the crew's mental unraveling, is why Das Boot holds a special place in the hearts of tank veterans. It captures the feeling of being trapped in a machine that both protects you and slowly drives you mad. The film's haunting, suffocating atmosphere is what makes it revered among tank crews. It's not just about combat, it's about the crushing weight of war that never lets up. For tankers, it's a film that shows the true psychological toll of life inside the iron beasts, whether on land or sea. Number 1. The Bridge at Remagen, 1969. Few films are as revered by tank crews as The Bridge at Remagen. Released during the height of the Vietnam War, this film is notable not just for its intense battle scenes, but for its brutal honesty about the futility of war. The story follows American and German forces fighting to seize the last bridge across the Rhine River in 1945. What sets this film apart is its unflinching portrayal of the chaos and destruction that tanks bring to the battlefield. The real tanks, the authentic battle sequences, and the sound design combine to create an experience that feels incredibly raw and real. Tank crews respect the bridge at Remagen for its dedication to capturing the brutal reality of armored combat, where victories are fleeting and every inch of ground comes at an enormous cost. The production itself became as chaotic as the battle it portrayed, with real tanks and stunts that nearly killed extras on set. The resulting film is a war story that refuses to glorify the experience. It's about survival, the brutal cost of victory, and the soldiers who fight within the machines. Tank veterans still refer to the bridge at Remagen as one of the greatest portrayals of armored warfare, and for good reason. 5 tank movies tank crews absolutely don't respect. Number 5. Battle of the Bulge, 1965. Battle of the Bulge promised a massive, action-packed war movie, but it fails to deliver when it comes to authenticity. Real tankers were furious with its glaring inaccuracies. The film replaced German Tigers and American Shermans with post-war Spanish tanks painted the wrong colors, and the battle scenes were simply unrealistic. The terrain looked like a summer field instead of the frozen Belgian landscape that defined the battle. For veterans who fought in the actual Battle of the Bulge, this film was a slap in the face. The tactics shown were off, the tanks didn't behave like they should have, and the overall strategy was pure Hollywood spectacle, not grounded in real combat. The film became a lesson in how not to depict armored warfare. For real tank crews, the lack of respect for historical accuracy made this film a disappointment, a case of cinematic arrogance at its worst. Number 4. Ironclad, 2011. At first glance, Ironclad appears to respect armored warfare. Heavy armor dominates the battlefield, and combat is presented as brutal and relentless. However, for real tank crews, the film quickly loses credibility. Armor is treated as nearly indestructible, absorbing repeated impacts without loss of control, visibility, or crew effectiveness. In reality, even minor hits can disorient crews and cripple a vehicle's function. The film also ignores tactical discipline. Armored units charge forward without coordination, support, or strategic positioning. There is little sense of vulnerability, mechanical limitation, or consequence. Combat becomes a matter of endurance rather than planning and precision. Tank crews value realism that shows armor as powerful but fragile, effective only when used correctly. Ironclad favors visual intensity over accuracy, reducing armored warfare to spectacle. As a result, it fails to reflect the caution, coordination, and restraint that real armored crews know are essential to survival. Number 3. Death Race, 2008. Death Race was never meant to be a serious war film, but its portrayal of armored vehicles drew ridicule from real tankers. Set in a dystopian future, the film features convicts racing weaponized cars and tanks for sport. For tank crews, it's a nightmare of unrealistic physics. The vehicles in Death Race have armor so thin it shatters on impact, yet somehow they remain indestructible, all while being driven in the most over-the-top stunts. Tankers couldn't take it seriously when they saw tanks treated like toys. No respect for the brutal, destructive force that real tanks embody. The film's wild comic book style made a mockery of what armored warfare truly represents. There's no tension, no fear, just flashy explosions and nonsensical logic. Tank crews see this as the antithesis of everything real armored combat stands for: power without purpose, style over substance. Death Race may have been thrilling for general audiences, but for tankers, it's pure fantasy. Number 2. The Monuments Men, 2014. While The Monuments Men aims to celebrate the heroes who saved art during World War II, its portrayal of tanks in armored combat left real veterans shaking their heads. Tanks in the film appear pristine, and soldiers seem to wander unscathed through active battle zones as if armored vehicles were mere background props. The tactics shown are completely out of place, and the film swings wildly between comedy and drama, which makes the depiction of tank combat feel lightweight and detached. Veterans felt the film was more about creating a beautiful, light-hearted adventure than capturing the true horrors of war. There's no grit, no urgency, and the tanks are presented as little more than beautiful set pieces rather than the brutal machines they are. The Monuments Men fails to depict the real weight of armored warfare, and for tank crews, it's a frustrating example of historical filmmaking that ignores the harsh reality of combat. Number 1. Battle for Anzio, 1968. Battle for Anzio promised realism, with Robert Mitchum and Peter Falk leading the charge in a story about the Allied landing in Italy during World War II. Unfortunately, it fails to live up to the hype. Veterans who fought at Anzio quickly saw the inaccuracies tank tactics were poorly depicted, and the tanks themselves felt more like slow-moving props than deadly machines. The pacing was off, and instead of urgency, the film delivered a sense of boredom. Tanks drift through scenes without purpose, lacking any real strategy or relevance to the actual battle. The editing is disjointed, and the lack of accurate portrayals of armored warfare left tank veterans feeling insulted. Instead of capturing the desperate and chaotic nature of the battle, Battle for Anzio simply gets lost in mismatched tones and ineffective storytelling. For tankers, it's a glaring example of what happens when accuracy is overlooked in favor of spectacle, making it one of the least respected tank films ever made. So which tank films earned your respect and which ones fell short? From the gritty realism of Fury to the over-the-top chaos of Death Race, these movies capture the intensity of armored warfare in different ways. Drop your thoughts in the comments, like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more cinematic deep dives. After all, it's all about the real story behind the tanks.